Morning. It's time for an early morning coffee chat again. It's been a minute. I think I've got to say, making a YouTube channel is a very interesting process. I learn a lot from the things that I post and the way that I engage. And it's interesting because we're playing around a lot with ideas, at least for me, of authenticity versus inauthenticity and all the layers to that and how we do life and society. And I keep thinking of this Alan Watts quote that says, he's talking and he says, people record me, but I never listen to a recording. I'd hate to listen to a recording, which I understand because it's really difficult to watch or listen to stuff that you make. Like, I personally don't script anything, but so in order to make a video, I usually have to take the video, watch it, take it again, like if there's a point to it, if it's not just me sharing, but it's pretty torturous. Anyway, he says, I have nightmares about a world of echoes, people, because he doesn't listen to his own recordings, but he knows they're there, but he knows they're going to outlive him. So eventually it's going to be sort of an echo of who he was. And we have so much of that going on because so many folks are at home, are getting information from screens, channels, social media. And it's very interesting because you can project something. How do I say this? Everything that's shared, because I've been exploring this a lot as I'm, posting and being with this channel, because I'm trying to very much be real in some ways, even look real, because by its very nature, this, right? Like a video is a fake medium, a fake way to share. I can look kind of any way, especially with filters, and I don't even know what's happening with like weird AI stuff now. They could probably use AI now. There's enough footage of me online to have me say anything, which is a fascinating concept for another time. But I can be anything through this or present any kind of image. And that's one reason it's important to me not to script things, because I do just kind of want to see what comes out. And I don't always want to look perfect, because we don't in life. And yet we want the people we look at to, because we expect that from ourselves, right? There's something in us that says, like, you shouldn't have a clump of hair poking out, when you're seen by others. And anyone that's going to judge me for that is living that way. I'm learning that more and more. But there's this sort of exploration of, can you be real on a medium by its very nature is fake? And there's a couple other things or layers to that too, where I'm more real on here in some ways, I've realized, than in real life, because I had this, I'll get to that in just a second. It's really hot. Ow. There's also this idea that everything you say on the channel is very real. People take it as very real. But there's another piece of this that I'll quote Alan Watts again. He calls himself a philosophical entertainer. He didn't say he was a teacher or a spiritual guru, and I think that's kind of where I'm going to come from, is a philosophical entertainer, that there's power in having the conversation, not because I'm right, not because I'm trying to teach anybody anything, but because looking at something and pointing at different topics in different ways can sometimes open up new perspectives and new ways of looking at things. So for me, one thing I've asked from the beginning with this channel is realize, like, I'm a person in process, and these videos aren't who I am or where I'm at. They're often me just processing and expressing. Sometimes it's a passionate moment, but aren't we all that way in life? We wake up happy, something happens, we get upset, we run our mouths about this, then, we forget about it. In 24 hours, we have a lot happening. Understanding that we are an energetic vibrational process that's occurring, not a thing that's doing something. Like, we're not solid. You're made of atoms and waves and, particles and energetic flashes, and you're a process that's happening. And realizing that, it makes a lot more sense why we would be able to change sort of moods. And so moods and our emotions so frequently based on what we're focused on. So there's sort of that element at play too. And sometimes I'm going to post things to kind of be a bit of an agitator, because I think it's an interesting way to look at a new topic, especially since I fall into a lot of sort of minority classes. So to get back to what I was saying, like the, obviously I made a video a couple weeks ago, one of the last bigger ones I posted, that was about people who demand that you respond to texts right away, because I wanted to start making a little bit of a series, is the wrong word, but I guess, of videos sort of running my mouth to defend the unpopular part of a conversation that's in our culture right now. So obviously the much more mainstream side to be on in that conversation is responding to text right away, right? Having good text etiquette. But there's also this side of letting things run our lives. And to add another layer then to this sort of real versus authentic. So sometimes well, it's not that I'm more real here, it's that my processing is being recorded. And people take processing as destination. I realize more and more in our communication how broken we are, in the sense that we don't realize that most people's oral communication, at least for my verbal communication, is a form of processing, and is really helpful and healthy to help me process my life. And so the more I can talk out loud, sort of the better I do, but I know where I'm at because I can hear myself and I can talk, but it's not a destination. Again, I'm a happening process. So I'm learning this today. And when we add Abraham's guidance here, or perspective on the way the world works, it starts to make a lot more sense, that we have this sort of guidance that's always calling us to what we want, and that things are always being drawn to us in a certain way because of what we're being. But anyway, I don't want to get off the conversation I'm exploring right now of the authentic versus inauthentic. So I made this channel where no one that knows me sees it, because it offers me a certain amount of freedom. And that's been an interesting thing to explore. Why don't I want anyone I know in real life to see this? And so I actually gave this YouTube only to 2 girlfriends that I thought, because here's the thing, when you really get into understanding what Abraham's talking about, and a lot of the New Ager thinkers like Wayne Dyer, and I don't know if you'd call him New Age or what you call positive thinking movement, Emmett Fox, Louise Hay, and that goes back to the early 1900s. So it's not like it's that New Age, but I guess compared to, Buddhism or Christianity. But even though I think really what they talk about is Jesus's main message. But it's this idea that how we think about things impacts them. And the more positively we think about people, places, things, the more we help them. And the more we think critically, the more we hurt them. So, and I feel a stronger influence when someone's closer to me in my life. I don't even know what closer means, but more connected to me, whether it's through Facebook or work or friendship or level of closeness. Maybe it's just the amount of time we spend connecting and thinking about each other is probably what generates that connection. But what I've noticed is if I post something where I feel sort of exposed or humiliated in my inner circle, the vibration gets really wonky. I guess I had some humiliating things happen now that I think about it, and particularly in certain social media aspects, really personal things. And I have a thing about my private information being shared with the masses, which is odd because I post online. This is a funny thing to talk about, right? I get to explore my own insanity. Since I don't feel that when I post online with strangers, I assume that those people are sending some kind of negative thought to me, or because I don't really have anyone specific in mind per se, but I've learned over time that if I do think something has upset someone, or I do think they're suddenly judging me or thinking about it, that it can potentially mean that they are. So case in point, I made this video about people that don't respond to text. And so anyway, so I didn't give anyone that really knows me in real life back to this YouTube channel. So anyone that's on here would really just be someone who is getting to know me through this. And I gave it to 2 girlfriends. And like I said, I felt like they would look at me in a positive light, no matter what silly thing I'm doing, even if they don't agree with the content. Like, we've reached that level, because there's something when I feel that people, so get to the root. One of the girlfriends saw that video last week and it like really offended her. And so I basically lost her kind of as a friend. And it can never just be sort of one event like that. But it showed me this interesting dance that I'm playing. Like, why would I care if people that know me see the channel? If anything I post surprises them, then that's either on them or me. And if they're the type of person that's going to take differences of opinion so personally and doesn't realize that we can just have differences of opinion, like you can think I should respond to the text right away and I cannot, and we can still be friends, that doesn't impact anything. To me, I wouldn't see it through that lens. But I do have an understanding that if someone is constantly looking at your text or waiting or feeling rejected, I feel it, right? Like, I feel that there are no private thoughts. And I've learned that more and more. And so anyway, it was very interesting to be like, wow, I only share it with 2 people and one person gets offended when I had one. And that was more of a joke video, as far as like a parody of, 1, being that which you claim to despise, 2, seeing if you can find anything, you can defend any underdog or any group or any kind of behavior to make sense, because we're all right where we stand. That's one of the big things I think that we struggle with at this time, is we want to be right, but that's not enough. You are right about how you have it in your life. We want everyone else to agree with what we think and what we see, except for they've all had different experiences. And again, when you add this Abraham thought process of, or foundational understanding of the world, to say everyone's in their own dream and everyone is sort of a powerful creator in their own dream, it makes more sense why we're all right where we stand and why we see things so differently, because we're a different energetic process happening, different vibration, different law of attraction, different beliefs that impact our senses or our processing, our world processing units that bring the world to us. So the things we see, hear, experience literally can be different, because we're only experiencing it through the filtering mechanism that is physical that we're aware of. What we're not so much aware of is we have a belief system that is also working in tandem with these senses to filter the world. So based on what I believe, what I see, and what occurs for me in life changes, because I'm a powerful creator, and it has to, there's 2 essential parts to the creative force. God's really a big word, but there's 2 parts. There's the focuser and then there's the force itself. And the force itself would sort of be something like the Tao, and the focuser would be something like us, at least in this physical realm. I'm sure we do it far more effectively on the spiritual side, but here in the physical realm, based on where we put our thoughts and our emotions, we create. And if our thoughts are negative and our feelings are negative, then we are co-creating something we actually don't want, but that's where our focus and energy is going. So we're creating that. If we're thinking about something positive and feeling positive, then we're co-creating with our inner being and creating something and bringing in something we really want. And that's essentially it. There's 2 emotions, wanted and unwanted, not good and evil. And we're drawing ourselves to those things based on, our own preferences. And we're supposed to be exploring our own preferences. On the other side, we're like a vibrational soup. We all swim together. So this is supposed to be that sounds so funny. Sometimes I struggle with the idea that this is a game, and doesn't feel purposeful enough. Like I want to save the world or do something. And it's so funny. It's been programmed into me. I just think of what Abraham says all the time, that if you're not struggling, you don't think you're living. And I definitely can be that way. So anyway, so interesting plays in my own life, real life, personal life, being impacted by a not so real life, but at the same time, I'm sharing more real moments that to the point they're so real that I'm afraid if the people I really know saw them, it would create more, I don't want to say unnecessary drama, but perhaps that's what I'm getting at. It's not that unnecessary drama that I'm just like, because I can hold a position in a video. That's what I talk about all the time. This is an inauthentic means. I can come on here and say anything and run my mouth. You know, the video I have that has the most play on here, it's hilarious, is a random video. I got like a little bug up my butt to make a video about Doreen Virtue and her deck of demons. I've been pulling cards from this deck. I haven't even touched it in a while, but I was doing it like every day, and it was cracking me up because my friend, who I just had the falling out with, funnily enough, told me that Doreen had gone Christian. And so I had started exploring that and reading it. And I'd just taken a shower. I was going to bed and I made this video. And I didn't read anything in it. I was just, running my mouth. I don't know what I said, but it's got the most views and comments out of any one of my videos. And it was interesting because one of the comments, it's upset a few people. It's offended some people. And some people like it. Like it creates interesting conversation, which I've realized over the course of the last few months is really one thing I want to do here, which is create conversation about interesting topics. In order to create conversation, it's not about being right. It's not about telling people how to think. It's more about creating a conversation. And if people can have a conversation, what I love about that video is there's a lot of comments. There's a lot of conversation. If someone feels a certain way enough to make a comment, whether they want to or not, they're going to go away and think about it a little bit more. And we're going to have a connection inadvertently in some way. We're building a bridge to each other as they experiencing me in the video, and then I'm experiencing them in real time as they think about me and the topic. So, but it's about that conversation. But you're like, okay, so to create the conversation, it's not always about being real. It's about being creative and creating a conversation. And that can be viewed as inauthentic because you're creating a video and a viewpoint for a conversation rather than to share how you really feel. But it's only like funny, really, if you make it how you really feel and you really own it. But if there's one thing I've learned in life, having been around so many different places and spaces and ups and downs, it's that we really can feel anything at any time. Like, here's what I mean. Most of us would feel the same way as other people are feeling in the circumstances that they're in, were we in those same circumstances. So we just think we wouldn't feel that way. And then we get into the circumstance and we go, oh my gosh. That's why Abraham says, words don't teach, only life experience teaches. And so it's been an interesting time to reflect sort of on what is being authentic. I mean, technically you're a spiritual being playing a human in a life for a few years. How authentic can that be at the end of the day? Because it's obviously not your real spiritual self. And yet I think it's a story that we sort of design probably ahead of time and then live out. So it's interesting to, I'm saying that too much. Interesting, that's really the wrong word. It's been a journey to play around with, how much do you involve your real life with your online one, but at the same time, I do share really personal stuff on here that I don't really want the people in my life that I have to see every day to see or know. And that is an interesting question about, I mean, obviously my husband, I wouldn't care, but other folks, So at the end of the day, really, it's I'm the one that's guarded. And there'll be a piece of this process, depending how the cookie crumbles, where it'll all come together. It's kind of like I've gone back to a place I was working before. It's actually the building where I fell in love with my husband. That's so exciting. And I love working there again. But I'm also looking at going back for my master's. I was supposed to go back like this month, actually, but then so much was happening. It just seemed like too much, changing jobs again, and the holidays, and my hubby with his car crash, and just a lot of stuff happened. And I'm very glad I didn't go back to get my master's right now, because we're going to our honeymoon next week. No, 2 weeks, well, a week and a half. And I just, it would be a big distraction to have to focus on school too. Like, it's enough to do work and the honeymoon and get prepped for that. But I would be starting it in August, and I'm like, but that's life coaching and consulting. And now I'm building a career back in retail and home improvement. How would those things work together? And do I need to change the degree so it works more with the job? Or do I need to just trust and go with it and see how it could resolve? And it's very interesting right now that Jess and I are going on our honeymoon, which is an Abraham cruise. Go figure. We planned it purposefully. We didn't expect him to be between jobs and me to be, back where I am and school. We just didn't expect a lot of the life factors, but we did have a vision that this would be a chance to reset, because a huge thing with Abraham is just being around that energy and then being out on a boat with that energy, and just extended time. We've gone to a few day conferences, but we really wanted extended time. This is a 10-day Caribbean cruise. We're also getting our honeymoon. And so it's a really special time. And we get that energetic reset, and we take our knowledge of law of attraction up a notch. I think I'm now seeing the last, months of this channel and everything that's been happening sort of as preparatory to this experience. And so yesterday we packed our clothes, and we built, my mom and dad are actually throwing us a little wedding reception down there, and so we're actually gonna have like a little wedding party. That's really fun. So we built the song list for that over the last couple days. So it's been an interesting time to come back together, to be like, we're honeymooning, we're gonna have like a wedding again, even though we've been married a year and a half. I think a lot of people don't tell you that the first couple years of marriage are going to be challenging. And they have been, but they've also brought us so much closer together and caused us such incredible growth. So I think we're incredibly excited. Lots of good happening. But I just wanted to come on and talk a little bit about the authentic and authentic thing, and the different layers it has in my life right now. What does it mean to be real? Who are you real with? How do you want to be perceived, or do you care about it all? Do you have any control about it all? Because we are each in our own little creative world. And but having a husband who's into this with me is really exciting as things shift, as so much has happened. We've gotten a lot more focused. And like I said, I've seen this last few months as sort of preparatory for this trip. My understanding has expanded. I've really started to dig into some foundational beliefs that hadn't shifted, that had stopped me from really, I think, living this. It has to change your beliefs. Like, you have to change how you believe how the world works. I was taught the opposite of Abrahamology when it comes to how the world works. Like, you have biology, which then creates a mental atmosphere, right? Which then creates an emotional atmosphere, and you have to treat the biology to correct the mental, which will correct the emotional. When now I'm learning, no, the emotion is actually a spiritual sort of communication device, right? A spiritual barometer for how you're doing in life, and are you moving towards what you want or what you don't want. And it empowers your emotions as being a lot more important. When I spent a lot of my life suppressing my emotions, like most people, but attempting to pull them out and suddenly use them as a very active, involved tool in life is not something you can do right away. And you can't, I can't continue to hold back my actions because I'm worried it's going to upset people. And I've known that that can be a pitfall for me, just telling people what they want to hear. And then you end up with sort of a lot of needy or narcissistic or victim-y personalities around. And so, and I get overwhelmed easy. A lot of the time I have to myself, I want to spend with myself. Even recently, because I had that falling out with that friend, and then we have this wedding reception coming up in the honeymoon. I actually have been texting a lot more people over the last few weeks, and I had spent a lot of my texting energy actually with that friend in the last year because of just she had some things going on in her life, and it sucked up a lot of my energy for other friends, frankly, because and it still wasn't enough, right? For her, it was never going to be enough, I guess. And so there's nothing I can do about that. Just like I said in the video that offended her, like there's no point in us being friends because I can't soothe that for you, like the need to have people respond to you at a certain time. I understand it. I know what it's about, but that's like not my circus, not my monkey. Like that's something you have to take on, and I'm not going to take on the negativity because again, I have this feeling if you're going to look at me, look at my channel, be engaged with me, look at my page and judge me. Like she never said one positive thing to me about a video. She made one comment on one time. And then I had no idea she was even watching them. So I had no idea she was even going to be watching that video. I didn't think she was looking at the channel at all. I don't know if she watches YouTube. So also, if someone's your good friend, even if they hate your content, they'd at least say, way to have the courage to post, because it takes a lot of courage. So, there was obviously more there anyway. But anyway, so I've been texting a lot more people, and it's just like, it takes a lot. I frequently find myself standing in a corner on my phone or on the toilet or on the couch, and I don't love it. I like my time for myself, to myself, like I was saying, and I don't get a lot of it. And so I like to listen to music. I like to think. I like to process because I have a lot happening in my life, and be still and know is the thing. So anyway, with that, that's just kind of a little exploration on something that's been happening in my life. And it's interesting as I evolve the channel, even touching on like Doreen and her deck of demons, to watch how things like some people love it, some people hate it, some people are upset, and it's like all this. It's fascinating to see how things land, and especially something I didn't put much thought into, and how people respond. And one guy even was like, put on makeup and wear a bra, but at the same time he was defending God, and I'm like, but God didn't create me with makeup and a bra. So interesting, you'd be defending a perfect single creator God and yet be tearing me to. Anyway, it's just been it's an interesting process to create a channel and share in this way. So we'll continue our studies, and I'll continue to share, and we'll take you on our honeymoon and to our reception next week. So that should be fun. And as always, thanks for being here with me.